My name is Zach. This is Walker, Cindy. And we have been invited here today as part of the Santa Cruz Art and Ecology Festival to talk to you guys a little bit. Our company is a storytelling and music company. We work in the space of what we call neo-mythologies and contemporary folklore. For us, story and mythology and folklore are ways that a culture talks about itself. And oftentimes, when a culture is talking about itself, it is set in a certain context, in an environment. When we look back at folklore and mythology, it often shows us the ways that those societies understood how the world worked, their relationship to it, and how they came to be. Part of our work is to try to restore relevance to the traditions of mythology and folklore. We know different things now. We believe different things than we used to. And so we think it's important to reinvigorate the oral traditions that reconnect us to our environments, that reconnect us to our ecological contexts, so that we can better understand who we are and where we came from and where we're going. We have a couple original stories to share with you guys tonight. Our first story is a myth. A myth is a way that people imagine how things came to be like they are, and also a way in which people explain what their values are in a society. It's hard to talk about ecology today without talking about the human impact on that. And so our first story talks about how humanity has changed the world around them. It's called The Story of the Inside. Long ago, there was someone who had made something that had never been made before. And that made him a magician. And what he created was so fundamental to our human experience that we often forget that it's all around us. He created this, the inside. And of course, the inside was the first thing that the first magician ever created, because when we first began creating things, it was always to answer a need. And the inside answers so many needs. The inside holds us. The inside keeps us safe. The inside brings us together. Once the inside was completed, there was somewhere just for us. Think about it. No animals allowed inside unless we name them. No plants allowed inside except for eating or for looking at. And no bugs. When the inside was completed, people stayed warm when the weather turned cold. They did not get wet when it rained. Loved each other in ways their parents could not see. And slept in soft, warm beds that were so cozy. And the magician had somewhere to continue his work, because what could be more valuable to a craftsman than having a space that does not change unless you are the one to change it? But the inside was popular, the most popular thing ever. You can't live without it, people started to say, and so begrudgingly, the magician decided he needed help. So he took on a young girl, an apprentice.
The first ever magician's apprentice. At first, she just dusted his vials or fetched his books from the basement or assembled all the right angles, because you just need so goddamn many to make it inside. And with her help, the magician was able to deepen his craft. He invented treasure chests and nooks under the stairs, places for socks and for secrets. But it wasn't until he invented the boat, an inside that floats on the water, that she realized she would get to help. She was an excellent apprentice, the first person allowed inside his workshop.
But don't touch anything.
He said.
It all stays the same unless I change it.
She seldom made mistakes and owned of the inside. The trouble started when she began to make embellishments. See, it was always the same spells, always with the same result. The workshop began to feel too small, the tools inadequate for her ambitions. Long day, she had just finished her 50th invocation of the inside and she just couldn't take it anymore, so she tried to change the formula.
And of course, he noticed. And suddenly, the inside felt too small, because it could not contain his rage. No longer warm and safe, it grew cold with his fury. Too small, too small, too small. We do not know if she fled or if he cast her out. But what we do know is that she went outside. It was the first time that anyone had been outside in so long.
And she was terrified. She missed her warm bed. She missed her mentor. But every night, as she built little homes for herself, she drew her head further and further out into the world. And she grew stronger. She still had her keen mind and all the spells the magician had taught her. And she began to realize that every problem that she faced, if she could look it in the eye, she could solve it. The first magician had taught her to segment off a piece of the world, to change it until it was unrecognizable. But the apprentice allowed the outside to change her. She opened up her throat to the sky. "Let it in!" she cried. She drank the rainwater, filled her pockets with earth, ate the insects, and brought the outside into herself. And from far away, the first magician could hear her cackle.
And from inside, he heard the thunder crash. Many years later, the first magician, alone in his workshop, ancient now, heard a knock at the door. He, stooped with age, irate at being disturbed, went to answer it. In the doorway stood a familiar face. It was another magician.
The second magician ever.
She looked older, wiser, and dirtier. But time had not dulled that sharp look in her eye. He thought back to when the inside felt warm and safe, and he had help with his work. Oh, it's you. Come crawling back.
Oh, good, you're still alive.
What do you want?
She could see him so clearly from the outside. The wise man who had crafted the miracle of safety in an uncertain world. Stubborn old man who still needed her. I made something. I want to show you.
We have plenty of things here already.
Please. I want to help.
Come inside. And so she helped him again.
As an equal this time. She relished having her own bed, her private space, and no bugs.
And with his deep practical experience,
And her knowledge of the outside world.
they expanded what the inside could be together.
Together.
And when he finally finally began to trust her again.
Stopped looking over her shoulder all the time. The second magician decided it was time to show him what she had made. In a secret room of the magician's own palace, the second magician created a room made entirely of glass. She polished the glass until it was nearly invisible and placed it facing west. And when it was complete, she went to show the old man. "Today I will show you my greatest trick," she said, covering the eyes of her grumbling master and leading him toward her creation. "I have found a way to extend the inside into infinity," she said, gently uncovering his eyes.
The sights of soaring cliffs and crashing waves greeted the magician for the first time in many years. He had forgotten what it had been like before. And as his eyes roved the seashore and he watched the sun gently slip behind the waves, the first magician, the second magician, softly opened the windows. The first windows ever. And for the first time in centuries, the first magician smelled the sea air and felt the salt wind on his face. Thank you. Walker Staple on the banjo. Cindy Lozier with me here. So, that is a story about human beings. But there's another way that we like to think about stories in this company. We like to think about the things that aren't human, that are in our system together. They've recently done these studies of starlings in England and the bird calls that they make. And I don't know if you guys know this, starlings are mimicry birds. They mimic each other's sounds, they mimic the sounds of other birds, they mimic the sounds that are in their environment, car alarms and car horns. And they've been studying these sounds, and recently they have found these starlings in England that mimic the sound of a two-stroke diesel engine. And the two-stroke diesel engine hasn't been in England since the 1950s. And I heard this, and this got me thinking, right? Like, so here's this sound, this extinct sound that the birds remember. And the only way for that to be possible is that the birds have passed this call from one to the next over however many bird generations. And that has me thinking about the many calls that the birds have, that they've told each other over the years and over the centuries. And maybe there are calls that we don't remember where they came from. We think they're starling calls, but the starlings remember. And when I think about this kind of oral tradition, I have to understand that human beings are not the only animals with stories. We're not the only animals with anything. And so we try to imagine the stories that the animals tell each other about how they came to be here and how the world came to be like it was. And so this next story is one of those. It's called The Story of the Pigeon. You see, a long time ago, before the pigeon was a pigeon, the pigeon was just a dove. The pigeon was a rock dove that lived and made its nests high in seaside cliffs on sheer walls. And they would put its nests there so that it was difficult for other predators to access them, but it meant that the dove had to learn to travel far away for food and bring it back. And this was the way that the pigeon began to learn to travel far away and always return to the things that it loves. Now, over time, as human beings began to gather together, form towns and cities, they began to collect food that pigeons liked, so pigeons began to come to human places. And they began to evolve to understand that they could be near us, that they wouldn't be bothered by us. And we began to be familiar with them. Over time, we started to understand that the pigeons would go and return and go and return, and we thought this was valuable, and so we began to breed them. They became our friends. They became our pets. We bred them to have beautiful plumage. We gave them names. We took care of them. For thousands of years, the pigeon meant something to us.
And as we got to know the pigeon, of course, we also got to know this habit of theirs of being able to return to home from faraway places. And of course, being domesticated, home was now where we lived instead of on the rock cliffs. And humans did what humans do. We noticed utility, and we began to use pigeons to establish long-distance communication networks. So people would travel from far away to come visit. We would give them a pigeon from our coop, and then after they had returned to those faraway lands, they would write a letter and send the pigeon traveling sometimes hundreds of miles all the way back to us. And suddenly, we were in communication with people we never would have been before. These are from times early, thousands of years ago. We would even put pigeons on ships so that if the worst happened and the ship did go down, the pigeons would be released, flying back home and sharing with the people back there what had happened.
Pigeons' eyeballs are separated by a paper-thin bone, so if you shine a light in the eye of one pigeon, it'll come right out the other eyeball.
What?
New fact.
So, over time, as our relationship with the pigeon grew, we depended on them more and more. Not only did they serve us in commerce, but they served us in wars. Pigeons fought in human wars all the way up through World War II. We bred the pigeon to withstand smoke and explosions, crowded conditions, bad living, and the pigeon stayed with us through all of it. They were one of the most dependable ways to get information from the rear to the front and back again, because men would be shot down and communication lines would be blown up or cut, but the pigeon would make it through and return that information. In fact, during World War I, the United States Army captured a bunch of pigeons from Germany and took them on a propaganda tour, and there is still the Kaiser's personal pigeon on display in the Smithsonian. You can see him, he's got a little hat. And the pigeon was, in fact, the longest held prisoner of war on American soil, was the Kaiser's pigeon in World War I.
And this is the way it was for literally thousands of years. The earliest known record of pigeons being domesticated is Mesopotamia, and that's just the earliest written record that we have. They believe that it might have been even earlier than that. Thousands of years of domestication, of relationship, of building these birds to be familiar and comfortable in our environments until the invention of the radio. The radio revolutionized instantaneous communication through long distances, and despite those years of relationship, those generations, utility was at the core of our relationship with the pigeon. And they were very, very quickly forgotten. Suddenly, they're on urban streets because we taught them to be there, but we don't want them there anymore. And we started to imagine, as storytellers, what the pigeon might feel about this, and the story they might tell.
tonight and listening to our stories. We're thrilled to be here with you guys tonight. Thank you for bringing us. We're called On Beyond. Walker Staples on music. Sydney, Lozier, I'm Zach Fish. You can follow us on Instagram or the website or whatever, onbeyond.xyz. We can be found everywhere. We have a link to our Patreon in the back if you'd like to support us and make this art possible. We're from the Bay Area, California. We perform all the time.
All the time. This Sunday, in fact.
And this Sunday, if you're in the Bay Area, we actually have a show on Sunday. We're premiering a new piece. If you'd like to find out about it, check us out on
And if you
Instagram or
sign
just
up
ask
for the
us.
Patreon, you get a free ticket. Just saying.
That's
$6 a month.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
In closing, I just want to remind everybody that where we come from and how it came to be like this is not an accident. We decided, we made it this way, and we forgot. And helping each other remember why it's like this is our key to moving forward out. Thank you all so much for